Hey, everybody, Scorpion here. So this video is putting the last 4 or 5, I think 4 videos together into one, just so you can follow kind of from beginning to end, because they do all kind of relate a little bit. I broke them down just so it's easier for you to process that video for a little while before you get all to the other stuff. But this is kind of a beginning to end video of how to figure how many panels you need for what your wattage of converter is, how to figure how many batteries you need based on how much solar you're producing, how to know how much solar you're producing, and to figure that stuff and everything, just kind of beginning to end. Also your kilowatt hours that you're using a month, and how many kilowatt hours you would be producing and what would be left over to pay. So just kind of an all-in-one video. Doesn't answer every single question, but definitely gives you a really good point to start to know what you need to do and how to go about buying the stuff that you need. So y'all stick around. Alright, so some of the information you need on solar is going to be, I guess, kind of first off is knowing what your peak hours are a day. And that's going to be peak hours of sunlight. That's your maxing out your panels, getting the full amount of what you actually have out there, you know, that kind of thing. So, I found this site, and I'm going to drop this in the bottom for you. Just gives you a little bit of information. As you see over here on the side, there's a whole lot of different things about federal tax credits, state solar incentives, all kinds of other stuff. Some planning, some system design things, wiring, step by step, blah blah blah, you know, on and on and on. But you can go here and pick from your drop down menu of whatever. So it gives you, you know, City of Richmond, State, Virginia, high is 4.5 hours and low is 3.37. So you kind of run off of an average of 4.13. And a lot of your solar stuff is average. So if you're trying to max out your system or you're off grid, you may have to go a little bit over to make sure that you're properly covered. Because low end, like the 3.37, that's going to be your winter months when your days are shorter. You're not getting as much direct sunlight, that kind of thing. Your 4.5 is going to be your summer months when the days are longer and you know, it's a little warmer outside and that kind of thing. And you come down here to the map and see, you know, majority, I'd say, of the state is going to be in this zone here. Some of Texas, all of Florida, all the way up through here. Kind of makes me feel good that, you know, I'm getting the same as kind of Florida down here. But that's your 4.5 hour peak sun. Then you drop into your 4.2. There's not a huge color change, but it's up here all the way up in the main. You got a loop of it here, and then you've got some green up here, which is 3.5 Washington, that kind of thing. Now you do get a little bit longer over here, and this is more of the desert plain area where you're not dealing as much with, you know, you've got a mountain range here and some mountains kind of through here. That changes stuff a little bit, but you got a small little spot that gets 6 hours, and 6 hours is a lot. But I'd say most of the state you're looking at 4.2 to 5 peak hours. The average is 4.5, and that's when you're going to be producing your max. So if you have 8,000 watts of solar out there, that's when you're going to be producing your 8,000 watts of power. And that is not going to run everything for just those few hours. And there's different ways to hook this stuff up too. So you kind of have to decide what you want, which way you want to go with everything from the get-go. I mean, you can always change up in the middle, but it costs money to change up. So do you want just solar panels to run, offset your power during the day? If so, all you need is panels and an inverter. Do you want battery backups, which tend to be pretty expensive? If you switch, some of your inverters won't allow you to switch. You have to buy a new inverter. If it's not set up for everything that you want, or you can't add to it later. The inverter I'm looking at has to have at least 2 batteries of the batteries that I'm using. Probably one battery that's big would be fine, but I mean, some of your batteries are $16,000 by themselves. People don't have money like that. That's insane for a battery. So, you kind of have to lay out and do a little research and decide which way you want to go. You can offset your stuff and buy a cheaper inverter for now and just offset your power during the day. And that's a good way to start. Later, buy a different inverter that allows you to hook batteries to it. But I've done enough research to know this is kind of the inverter I want to use. This is kind of the way I want to go. So I'll get the base that I need for my inverter to work, and then kind of step it up from there and finish building that inverter and system. And then later, I can buy another inverter, more panels, that kind of thing after I've maxed that system. But there's all kinds of good useful stuff in this. So I'm going to try to drop this website down there for you so you can kind of see what you need and what you're looking at. And I'm going to throw some other information in here next to try to help you out with kind of. Alright, so we'll start with figuring your solar panels for your system. So I have the system that I'm building is a 8,000 watt is the max you can do as an input. Alright, with that said, you need like a 1.5% surge protection. So that you need that buffer of 1.5% of that 8,000 to make sure that you don't surge your inverter and blow it up. So if you take 8,000 times 0, okay, times 0.015, you end up with 120 watts. Alright. So I need at least 120 watts between what I'm producing and the max that it'll take. So looking at your panels, there's different ideas for everybody. Some people may need to pay more money. They may have less space. It all depends upon your situation. Me, I've got farmland. I've got plenty of backyard space. So I'm going to put out whatever is the cheapest for me. With that said, your 450 watt panels, to build to that 8,000 watt system, you're looking at 17 panels. If you go over 17 panels, well, 17 panels gives you 7,650 watts. If you add another 450 watts to that, you're over 8,000 watts. So you don't want to do that. 450 watt panels cost you $210 each. That's $3,570 plus tax, shipping, whatever else. 400 watt panels times 19 gives you 7,600 watts. If you add another one, you're sitting on 8,000 watts. That does not leave that 120 watt buffer for surges. So you can't do that. So you stop at 19 panels. They're $185 a piece. That's $3,515. Come down to the 390 watt panels times 20 panels gives you 7,800 watts. The next panel, if you went to 21, would put you over the 8,000 watts, which is your max input. So you have to stop at 7,800. You still have the 120 watt buffer up here for power surges with another 80 watts extra. So you have a 200 watt buffer there for power surges. Good chance you're never going to get a power surge that's going to burn your system or your inverter. So 20 panels at $150 a piece is $3,000 plus tax, shipping, whatever. Alright. So I've got the room to put 20 panels out and save $515 to $570 and be producing more power. You know, you're 150 watts higher here, you're 200 watts higher here, and still have the correct buffer. So this is going to be the route I go. I'm going to take 390 watt panels at 20 panels at $150 a piece. It's cheaper and it produces more power. It just takes up a little bit more space. Now if you live in the city, you're probably going to want 450 watt panels because it takes up less space. You're going to have 3 less panels. But it's going to cost you $570 more, and you're going to be producing less power. Food for thought, just things you need to look at when you're building your system. I come up with the 8,000 watt because my inverter is a 8,000 watt in, 6,000 watt out that I'm looking at. So I cannot go over the 8,000 watt input, and you need to leave that buffer for power surges, just as a safety. So that's kind of your panel stuff. That's how to figure your panels and that kind of thing. So hope that helps y'all on figuring your panels. You need to just decide what size system you're going with. Now you can throw in a 8,000 watt in and a 6,000 watt out inverter, and you don't have to max it on your panels. You don't have to, okay? I just know I'm going to need more than that in the future, so I'm trying to build me a single setup, everything all in one, buy it all at once, ship to me, to give me a good start on my power bill. Hopefully take care of a third to a half of my power bill. So we're going to see, and that's basically what I'm working on and looking at. So this is how you figure your panels. You need to figure how much power you need, which I need way more than what I'm going to get. And I'm going to show you the breakdown on how to figure up your power and that kind of thing, too. So, but just know if you're on an 8,000 watt in, then your panels need to come up to less than that and leave a 120 watt buffer. That's the biggest thing you need to do. And I'm going to go with what takes up more space but costs less money, and I end up with more wattage. I'm closer to that 8,000. Alright. So, let's go into the battery. Just some battery information. So if you build an 8,000 watt system, and of course the system I'm building is a 7,800 watt. So it's going to take a little bit more charging time than what's listed here. But if you have a 300 amp hour battery backup, 8,000 watt system, it takes 1.9 hours of peak sun time to charge that system. So it's not really taking away from your solar power, but you do have to use part of your power to charge the system. And I would kind of say it depends on how you want to set it up. Some people want morning time to charge their system. Me, I'm not very active in the morning. It's normally around lunch before I get up, and I tend to be up most of the night. But this is one reason why I'm staying connected to the grid, because I'm not going to have a system big enough to sustain everything that I need yet. But I can build to it later. Some people want to recharge those batteries in peak time. Some want to recharge early morning, so peak time is all direct energy. It's just what works out best for you. And a lot of your panels or inverters now you can program and set up to do however you want. But if you have a 600 amp hour backup battery, then you're looking at 3.5 to 4 hours to build that. I did have somebody tell me I needed a 12 amp hour battery, and I mean, from a previous video, as you know, I'm only getting 4.13 peak sun hours, so I can charge it in this amount of time. But if I go to this, I don't have enough. It's going to take me 2 days to charge that, and if I'm using all of that through the night to survive, then I don't have a big enough solar array to recharge those batteries. So that's kind of where you run into problems at, and figuring it out. If you're on a 12,000 watt system, then 4.8 hours, you're kind of right there. You're cutting it close. It depends upon how much battery power you're using. You know, if you still have a third of each of your batteries left, then you're probably going to charge it. But if they're all dead, you're not going to be able to charge that when you only have 4.13 hours a day of peak sun hours, and it needs 4.8. So you're still kind of over. You have two more battery than you can actually adequately use. So you have to keep your system balanced while you build it. Now, some people just want the solar power during the day, and they're not worried about nighttime. They run on the grid at night, or maybe they turn everything off at night and just suffer through the night. Whatever. To each their own. You know, whatever makes you happy. However you want to configure your stuff. I'm just kind of throwing information out there for you. So I'm going to start off with the package I'm trying to set up is 300 amp hours. So 1.9, basically 2 hours, is going to be charging my batteries, because I'm 200 watts less than this. So I'm going to spend about 2 hours recharging those 3 batteries that I have. I will eventually move up to this, and then I'm going to be using about 4 hours. So almost all of my peak sun hours is going to be running my house and recharging batteries, both. Once I get to this, then I'm probably going to be looking, and that would be 6 batteries that I'm looking at. Then I will probably be looking to add 2 inverters, or 1 inverter. Add another inverter, so I can build another 7,000, 800 watt system with mine doesn't want to work today. Solar panels, 7,800 watts of solar panels going into my 8,000 watt inverter, and I would have to have 2 batteries again to be able to start that system, which I could pull 2 batteries from this side, so I'd have 400 amp hour on this side, and I can drop 2 batteries over here, which would give me 200 amp hours at that point. And then, I'd be good. I can keep going. And the inverters I'm looking at, I think you can put up to 12. So at 8,000 watts a piece, 12 times 8,000, 80-some thousand. Yeah, you can build a huge, huge system. 3 would be, I think, all I need. But that's just information on charging your batteries, because a lot of people forget that you've got to pull from those panels to charge those batteries during the day, and you can kind of program when you want it to charge and that kind of thing. But a lot of people, late evening, you start pulling from your batteries again, and then once the sun's completely down, because you're not producing 8,000 watts, late evening you may be producing 6,000, and then it'll drop to 4,000, and then, so it depends upon how much usage you're using as to how much is left over, if any, and the excess will have to come from your batteries. So, and then of course once the sun goes down, you're discharging batteries until they're done, and then you're out, and you got to start all over the next day. So just some battery information, how long it takes to charge, how much you have, that kind of thing, and so on. So if you're running an 8,000 watt system, you're looking at 2 hours to charge 300 amp hours. 600 amp hours, you're looking at 3.5 to 4 hours of peak sun time. And if you're running 2 systems, then I imagine this would probably cut in half. So you charge that in an hour, that in probably 2 hours, and so on and so forth. But you don't want to surpass or have more battery than you can charge with your system. At that point, you need to be building panels again before you start upgrading batteries, because I had somebody tell me I needed like 12 batteries, which would put me like 1200 amp hours, and it'd take 2 days to charge them, but I'm discharging every night, so they would never be actually charged, so it wouldn't do me any good. I'd still be sitting at like 600 amp hours instead of 1200. It wouldn't do me any good to have that many batteries when I can't charge them, so I'd have to have another 800 watt system and then go to 1200, and then both of them would pretty much be maxed, and that kind of thing. So just balancing the system, learning the stuff. Alright, so how to figure your kilowatt usage. Most people figure it on the average. Me, I want to eventually build a system that'll take care of 400 kilowatt hours a month. That way I know I'm never going over. I don't have anything to worry about. But your average is a really good place to start. Some months you may not have a power bill. You produced more than you use. Some months you may have a small power bill. Some months you may still have a halfway decent power bill, depending upon how much you're producing and how much you're using. Also, your cold months of the year, you're producing less power. Okay? Normally I'm heating off of a stove and not heat pumps, so this is not really accurate for me right now. But it does give me somewhere, eventually I may get old and I don't use that outside wood stove anymore. This gives me some idea of what I'll be using. So it's good to have. Your summer months here, you're going to be producing a whole lot more power. So, I mean, this is your hottest month right here. That's your AC burning up that many kilowatt hours. Your heat pump, air conditioning, whatever. So you're covered, but you're also producing more power because you have longer days. The sun's beaming down on you more. Up here you have shorter days, so you're not producing as much power. So that's kind of why you build an average, just to kind of see what it is. And depending upon what state you live in, what power company you're with, blah, blah, blah. Some of them give you credits. Some of them lower your fee. Some of them lock you in at the fee that you're at now, as far as because you're using solar. They're like, all right, you're paying whatever per kilowatt hour, and you're locked in at that because you're using solar. So when we up it next year or 2 years from now for everybody else that doesn't have solar, you stay at this rate because you were producing some of your own electricity. So it's stuff you have to look into and check on. Call your power company, that kind of thing. There's also credits and other things that you can get that will help pay for part of your solar and that kind of thing. So I'm going to do this math for you, or actually I've already done it, and we're going to move over to figuring up your average and that kind of thing. So we're going to drop this one and we're going to go right here to some more of my super awesome handwriting. And get average kilowatt usage. So you're going to add 12 months. That's going to be from the last screen we were just on. That's your kilowatt usage. So you're going to add 12 months. There's normally 13 months listed on there, so don't do like me and you'll end up with chicken scratch here if you add all 13 months. So I went back and changed it. So I'm using 28,797 kilowatt hours a year. If you divide that by 12, that gives you what your monthly is. So 2,400 is what my average is throughout the year for the month. All right. Again, depending upon your electric company, what state you're in, what rules they have set as to how that plays out. You may be able to produce and put out onto their grid, which they pay you a certain amount for. You may be able to bank sometime, and they take it off of your bill throughout the year. There's all kinds of different things. If you're standalone, then you don't get that anymore because you're not hooked to the grid. But just kind of a way for you to produce, help the electric company when you're producing more than what you need, and then when the days are shorter and you're not producing as much and you need some of it back, quite often a lot of places credit you maybe 1 kilowatt for every 2 or 3 that you produced and put on the line. So it gives you a little bit back. So if you want to know what you're using a day, you're going to take that amount and you're going to divide it by 30. And that brings me down to 80 kilowatt hours a day. If you divide that by 24, then I'm using 3.4 kilowatt hours an hour. So this comes into play when you start figuring your batteries and how long your battery is going to last. And again, this is the average. So if it's during the time that you're using the most power, your battery's going to last less time. If it's during the time that you're hardly using any power at all, then your battery's going to last longer. So a lot of this stuff is set up on average, just to give you an average idea. It's like best guess as far as I'm concerned, or if you put them together, it's an average best guess. So how do you know what's your monthly stuff and all? Alright, so your max is 4.13 hours a day. That's mine according to an earlier chart that we looked at. This tells you what you have for maximum wattage. This is for 4.13 hours a day. I'm producing max out of my system because I'm in the best sunlight. Alright, so you times that by 30 days in a month. Again, it's an average. Some are 29, some are 31, blah blah blah, average. And that gives you 123.9 hours a month. So I just rounded that up to 24 because everything's best guess anyway. So we're just trying to get some information, some idea. You can nitpick this stuff all the way down to exact amounts if you want, if it's worth that to you, but it's not. I just want a baseline of kind of what I'm producing, what I'm making, what I'm spending, that kind of thing, so I kind of know what to expect. So you can take your size of your system now, and it's an 8 kW system, but I'm only producing, remember, 7,800 kilowatts. Alright, you're going to multiply that by your max, what you got right here. So this is your max production. So of course, early morning, late evening, you're going to make a little bit more, but as of right now, you're just trying to figure out a good baseline. So late evening, you may only be producing 6,000 kilowatts. Early morning may only be producing 4,000 kilowatts. So they kind of base it off of this because you figure, especially if you have batteries, the rest of that off time is just charging your batteries up, is the way I look at it. Late evening, you're probably using whatever your panels are making and subtracting power from your batteries. So yeah, so this kind of gives you that baseline, 124 hours a month. So the system, the size of your system times your hours a month gives you a monthly output of 967.2 kilowatt hours a month. So that's what you're producing. We're just under 1,000 kilowatt hours a month. Alright, so how much is it going to save you? So you take your average use in a month, which we just did a little bit ago. Alright, so this is our average use, 2,400 kilowatt hours a month. Subtract what you make in a month, which is 967.2, and that's what you need to pay, or that's what's left over for your bill. So we come down here and do the math. We are using 2,400. We're making 992. So take this, subtract this from it. It leaves you with about 1,433 kilowatt hours that you're paying for. And this is based off of my bill too. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't use anywhere close to the same amount of power I do. But I'm giving y'all numbers in real time just so you can see. So instead of me paying on average, this is my average through the year, 2,400 kilowatt hours a month, and some companies allow you to average your bill for the year too, so you have a steady electric bill. Now you're only paying for 1,433, so you knocked almost a complete 1,000 off of that. Didn't quite cut it in half, but it's a little bit more than a third. So that gives you some idea how the math on this works, how to figure what you're using, what you're producing, and what's going to be left over. So I figured kind of from the get-go on my earlier figures when I was just crunching numbers fast that I was going to need 3 of these systems that I'm doing now, and they're going to be $10,000 to $15,000 a piece. But I'm making the initial purchase on one, or I'm hoping to. It's not set in stone yet. I'm making the initial purchase on the first one to go ahead and cut a third to a half of that electric bill, and that will take care of, you know, saving me some money every month, and then I can build onto that system in the future as I can. You know, if you're saving on your electric and you take what you save on your electric and put it towards solar, then you're not coming out of pocket to build your solar further. You're just taking what you're saving. So every couple months you can buy another piece. So if you remember, let me pull this back up real quick. We're producing 992 kilowatts, right? So if we can get this computer to do what it's supposed to do here, and it keeps wanting to jump over into that. And we go over here, so we're producing 922, so that takes care of this month. No power bill. I think with my company it's like a $5 a month fee or $10 a month fee for being connected. That's leaving what, 400 kilowatts to pay for, 700 kilowatts to pay for, 1,000 kilowatts to pay for, 900 kilowatts to pay for. So I mean, massive reduction on it. So some of it you're taking care of, and some of it you're cutting in half, and you can take that extra money and roll it over to your production to be able to further your solar and cut what you have to pay for down more. So I hope this helps, and we'll try to